Yay! Okay, well, hello everybody. Welcome to today's webinar where we will be talking about writing outreach that gets consistent replies. My name is Natalia Bullett. I am the Lifecycle Content Manager over here at Loxo. But as you can see, we've got Lex Winship. She is the Director of Content at Loxo, and the main person, the main woman of the hour over here is going to be Sandra. Sandra is our Customer Marketing Manager at Loxo, but not only that, she has had over 20 years of experience when it comes to copywriting. So if there was someone that we wanted to be able to talk about today's subject, it's definitely her. Okay. If you have questions about today's webinar, then go ahead and click into the Q&A session. We will be talking and trying to go through as many as possible as we can towards the end of the webinar. Sandra, the floor is all yours, so feel free to get started.
Everyone, it's so nice to see you here today. I had this idea for the webinar because I know that a lot of recruiters are relying on outreach, and I'm talking about email a lot in this webinar, but really this works for any kind of outreach, whether you're sending LinkedIn InMail or whether you're SMSing or WhatsApp, the same kind of principles apply. So I realize you do a lot of outreach, but many of you are not actually trained as copywriters. And in copywriting, we have a few tips and tricks that we use to write efficient outreach. And we thought that sharing that with you might make it easier than trying to start from scratch and knowing what to say. And, this email isn't working well, so I'm going to throw it away and start over brand new. So I'm going to walk you through some principles and some frameworks to make it easier to construct emails. And then I'll show you how to improve on them over time as well. So email outreach has a lot of aspects to it, deliverability, subject lines, there's a lot, and we can't cover all of that in one webinar. So I'm focusing on the body of the email today, and I'm hoping in the future to talk more about subject lines. We have already had a few webinars about email deliverability, and we have a lot of resources in our help center as well if you're a Loxo customer. So there's a lot more information for you. But today I'm focusing on the copy in the body of the email itself. So as you all know, sending emails today, you're competing with everyone in the world out there. People's inboxes are full and they get dozens, maybe hundreds more emails every day. So if you're especially doing cold outreach to someone, you really have to stand out to be noticed among this massive amount of emails people are sifting through. And a lot of emails fail because they're either generic, they're predictable, or they're easy to ignore. And I'm sure all of you know this from your own inboxes. Like, how many dozens of emails do you get a day that you just delete without hardly paying any attention at all? So if you don't want to be one of those for your outreach partners, you need to make it so that you show the benefit to them in a quick skim in just a couple of seconds. So today we estimate that the average human attention span is about 9 seconds. That isn't very much, and even that is only after they've decided to read your email. So if you think about it, like 1, 2, 3, if you haven't grabbed them in that time, you might as well have just not sent your email. And that's a lot of pressure. You have to be really targeted and smart and know what people want to be able to grab attention that quickly. So I'm going to be talking about 3 guiding principles first, and these are just general things to think about as you write your outreach. The first one is concise beats clever. And it really beats wordy. Like, people like to talk, but people don't like to read. So when you're sending your email and you're saying things like, I hope you're doing well, you've already lost them in your very first line. Like, nobody cares. I don't care. You hope I'm doing well. I assumed you weren't hoping I was doing poorly. Like it's just a waste of space, a waste of time when you only have those 3 seconds to grab attention. So let me show you a couple of examples. I have like a kind of typical email you might see. I hope this email finds you well. I am a recruiter and I came across your profile. I was impressed by your experience. It's amazing how everyone in the world is impressed by everyone's experience. Like, you see this wording so often if you're a candidate. It means absolutely nothing. And then there's just a lot more text. We're looking for someone. It's all I hope, I am, we are, we want. None of this is talking about me and what I want. And in the 3 seconds I've given you to grab my attention, I only care about what you are going to do for me. Right now, I could care less what you want, what you're doing, who you are. I want to know, does this email apply to me specifically? And if it doesn't, it's gone. Now, on the other hand, I have a very short email. I saw your work on this project migration. You got impressive results. Are you open to discussing something similar at Loxo? 3 sentences, I can skim it in a glance, and it's talking about me, like something I did. I'm probably proud of this migration. I might be happy that someone noticed I did it. Like, I might actually be open to talking about it. Hmm. It's much more likely to get a reply. So the next is personalization beats platitudes. And I bet all of you have gotten LinkedIn InMail or emails that try to be personalized and couldn't be more boring. Like one that I get a lot is something like, I loved your blog post. I thought it would make a great paid placement for, I don't know, machine parts. And I'm like, I don't write blog posts at Loxo, so I doubt you loved my blog post. And Loxo has nothing to do with machine parts. So your attempt at personalization has just lost me. You're a scammer. I don't need to hear from you. So you need personalization, but you need it to be the right kind. So it could be irrelevant. It could be obviously mass produced, like I've loved your blog post sent to 10,000 people. They don't read one single blog post of any of those 10,000, and you know it just by looking. So an example of a much better personalization is I saw your team recently expanded into the EU market. We just published a report on hiring in the EU. Would you like me to send it over? Now, assuming that's true, and we really did just expand into the EU market, a report that might be useful to me, that might help me in my project of hiring more people in the EU, yeah, that might get a response from me. And the third one is curiosity starts conversations. And this is a really important thing to realize is that your first cold outreach, your goal is not to close a deal. Your goal is to start a conversation. You cannot, in 3 or 4 lines, in most cases, get someone to agree to be your client or to agree to be your candidate. It's just too short. You need to just start this curiosity gap that makes people want to respond to you and take those first steps in the relationship that you're building. And you can think of it kind of as a closed loop versus an open loop, or maybe like a tab. You have a tab open in your mind and you want to close it. If you have a closed loop, you give them all of the information they need. Hi, I'm recruiting for a senior engineer at Loxo. I've attached the role description. Are you interested? They might look at the role description if they're really, really wanting a new job, and then they might jump at it, but there's nothing, they know everything they need to know from this email. There's not really any urge to answer unless the role is perfect. Meanwhile, in an open loop, you're asking a question and that causes a tension that people have a psychological need to close. I noticed you're working with both UIKit and SwiftUI. This is probably for an iOS developer. Do you prefer working with one over the other? Now, maybe the person isn't working with UIKit or SwiftUI, hates both of them, doesn't want to be an iOS. On the other hand, you've asked a question and it feels rude and uncomfortable not to answer. So that kind of curiosity gap, or the one you saw earlier, we've created a report that's relevant to you. Would you like to see it? I can't tell you the number of times that people have reached out to me in my role at Loxo and said, I've created a report on how you can do customer marketing better. Would you like to see it? Almost always, yes, I would. Maybe it's irrelevant. Maybe I don't need it, but maybe it will help me. And I'm willing to open the door that much to see if it's relevant to me. So the takeaway here is you don't need to explain everything in your first outreach. You need to be aiming towards starting that relationship, really getting to know them, giving them a reason to want to get to know you. You're trying to get your first reply. You're not trying to like marry the person on the first date, right? So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the copywriting frameworks that we use to apply these principles. So I'm not going to go into all of this detail here. This is mostly for you to understand that there's different copywriting frameworks that work really well in different situations. And I'm going to go into them one by one next. So the first one is called PAS, Problem, Agitate, Solution. And the idea here is, first of all, to identify a problem that your outreach partner is facing. And then really like talk about the struggles that that problem is causing and what happens if they don't do anything about it. And then to position yourself, your services as the solution to that problem. So I know you're suffering. It must be really horrible to be in that situation. And here's how I can help you get through it. So I'm sharing an example here. Here's a poor example. We, again with the we are a premier recruiting agency with 10 years of experience finding top talent. We're growing teams. We'd love to help you hire. So boring. How many people do you think get emails like this? They probably get dozens. On the other hand, if you use the PAS framework, we identify the problem. Sifting through hundreds of resumes to find a qualified candidate is a massive drain on resources. Then we emphasize how bad that problem is for them. This often results in a long time to fill and the risk of losing top talent to competitors. And the solution? Our recruiters deliver pre-vetted, interview-ready candidates directly to your inbox, reducing search time by 50%. Is that worth a 15-minute chat? If I was really facing that problem, I might think I'm losing hours of time, and that can be solved with a 15-minute chat. Why not? What's it going to cost me? Not much, probably. The next framework I wanted to talk about is called BAB, Before, After, and Bridge. So in Before, After, Bridge, we are painting two different pictures. The before, where they're struggling with something, the after, where they've got this great ideal future where that problem is solved, and you in the middle as the bridge to transition from one state to the other. So here's a boring example. Are you open to new opportunities? We're hiring a senior developer with 5+ years of React experience. Is that going to excite the developer? Only if they're desperate for a new job. But if you have BAB, and I'm thinking about this in terms of passive candidate sourcing, I'm thinking this is a great developer you have a fantastic role for, but they're happy in their job, or at least they're not actively looking. So let's tell them about a problem they might be facing. Most lead engineers spend 70% of their day maintaining legacy code. And I used to work with developers. They hated maintaining legacy code. Most people go into software development because they like to solve problems and do new things. And like fixing a bug in a legacy system for the 8,000th time is soul draining. So a lot of people might perk up with that. And then we show them the after. Imagine shipping entirely new features on a modern greenfield tech stack. That's what they're there for. That's what they entered the industry for. They want that. So how do we get from state A to state B? With your bridge. We're looking for a senior developer to own exactly that transition for our core product. Worth exploring? If they're in that situation, it's probably at least worth an email. And this is the final framework I'm talking about today. It's called AIDA, Attention, Interest, Desire, and Action. So this is probably the longest of all of the frameworks because you're taking a little extra time. You're grabbing their attention, then you're stoking their interest by tying it to a specific challenge they're probably facing, a trend in the industry, like something that they're interested in. And once you've got their mind thinking about it, you bring their heart into it. You're building an emotional connection to what you're talking to them about. And finally, you end with an action, something you want them to do that's specific and pretty easy. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It doesn't take a lot of time. They can just agree to it, kind of like that 15-minute chat we mentioned earlier. So here's an example for nurturing your clients. Just checking in, see if you have any hiring needs this quarter. Let me know. I can't even say that without using an annoying voice. I think you should try really hard in all of your outreach to never use the word just. Just means you can just ignore this email. After using AIDA, we're going back to the EU market here. So attention, I noticed your recent expansion into the EU market. And now a point of interest that's related to that. When expanding rapidly, teams often struggle to maintain engineering culture across time zones. Now, this is something, if you've just started working in the EU, you're probably facing this problem. What used to be easy to schedule a call or to onboard someone, all of a sudden they've got 6 hours difference or more, like Lex and I, and we have to find ways around it. And if you're not experienced with doing that, that's a challenge. So here's the desire. We recently helped a client scale their remote team while cutting ramp-up time by 30%. That sounds pretty good to me. Actually, I would like to have that as I expand. And so the action, are you currently exploring new hiring partners for this expansion? Let us know. Like that's, just reply. Say, yeah, I am. I could use some help here. Very easy ask. So I made a little cheat sheet here that talks about each of the frameworks we discussed, the use cases we discussed, and this psychological trigger. So when you're doing problem, agitate, solution, you're encouraging people to avoid a pain point. So research has shown that people are more likely to try to avoid a pain point than they are to seek a benefit. So if you're really talking to like what's annoying and frustrating about their jobs right now, then you're in a good place to relate to them and make them more likely to want to talk to you. BAB is about an aspirational transformation. You're in a place that isn't great now. We can help you get to that great place you want to be in. And AIDA is a logical progression. So we are looking at a place you're in. We're finding a way that we can interest you in what we have to say and give you something you're going to want. And then a step you need to take to respond to me. And all of those are much more likely to get a response than just wondering, could you use some help? Now, one thing that's really helpful when you write any kind of outreach is to apply the so what test. And the so what test is you look sentence by sentence and you put yourself in the shoes of your outreach partner and you ask, what would they do if they say, so what? So if we go back and we look at some of these more annoying emails, we are a premier recruiting agency with 10 years of experience finding top talent for growing teams. So what? Well, with this kind of experience, we can help you find the job you want. Now that's interesting. We're a premier recruiting agency, not interesting. We can help you find exactly the job you need, more interesting. We're hiring a senior developer with 5 years of React experience. So what? Well, we've noticed that you have a lot of React experience, so this might be interesting to you. So what? Well, this role is with a brand new company that has a lot of funding and it's scaling fast, and it could be a real opportunity to go from a senior developer to a CTO role in a few years. Now that's interesting to me. And you can ask this so what question 3, 4, or 5 times, and then you get to the heart of the matter. Like, then you get to the reason why this person is interested in your email. And if you ask a so what question, you can't get to an answer, cut that sentence. You don't need it. I hope you're doing well. So what? I don't know. I don't know why I said that. It just seemed polite. Throw it out. You don't need it, right? Okay, so its key takeaway here is you don't have to be a creative writer to have an impact. You can use these frameworks and shape them to your own customers, your own company, your own clients, and make them be really useful and targeted. You don't have to start from scratch. Okay, so I've been talking a lot, and that's always super annoying, and I'm so sorry. But right now, I want you to jump in because I have an email here, and I would like you to tell me what's wrong with it. So the email says, "Hi, I hope you're doing well, and I know you know how much I love that start. I wanted to reach out because we are working with a client who has an exciting opportunity for a senior engineer based on your background, I thought you might be a good fit. Let me know if you'd like to learn more. Please go into the chat right now and tell me some of the things or all of the things that are wrong with this email. So what for the first and second sentence? Absolutely true. It isn't personalized to the person's qualities. So true. I have an exciting opportunity for a senior engineer. There are so many senior engineers out there. Not personalized, very common. First sentence needs to be cut. Absolutely. Needs to be more specific. Not exciting.
No curiosity gap we're seeing, no pain point. Lots of people saying that they lost interest after the first line. Lots about I want this, I hope that. Not a lot about the candidate themselves. Yeah, all great, great notes.
I think you are paying good attention, or you already knew this. It could be you're already great at outreach. I wanted to reach out because, such a horrible thing to start out with. So many wasted words. I don't care about I. I don't care that you wanted to reach out. You did reach out. I noticed. Yeah. What's in it for me? Absolutely. That's another way of looking at so what? What is in it for me? Nothing about the opportunity. Nothing makes it exciting. This could be a $30,000 a year senior engineer role for all I know. Could be in the office in Piscataway. I don't live there. Let me know if you'd like to learn more. Super boring. Falling asleep just reading this email. Let's move on, right? So what we came up with here is it's vague, it's generic, it doesn't have a clear hook, and it gives no real reason to reply. And that's exactly what you guys have been saying. So now I took a stab at rewriting it using BAB. So a lot of senior engineers today are stuck maintaining legacy systems. One team we're hiring with, or we're working with, is building a new platform from scratch and hiring engineers who want to shape the architecture early. A lot of engineers I knew had loved working with architecture. So your experience working at startups caught my attention. Would you be interested in hearing more? Engineers won't respond to that email either. Zach, tell me how you'd rewrite it. Like, some things I can think we could maybe do better is mentioning the benefits or the salary. If that's a good salary, give more details, name the startup. Those are good points. There's no specifics about a tech stack here, so that is probably way too generic for a good engineer. I was trying to show a more generic, like this kind of building of a picture from beginning to end. I'm not really hiring an engineer. But you're right. A lot more details, a lot more specificity would be really helpful here. And someone could say, so what? Someone could say, so what? But I don't think you would necessarily say, so what, if you felt stuck in that position. Maybe. I don't know. You could, I'm not for sure saying that this is the perfect email to send. It's just a better one. It's an example of using that framework. I think more specificity, I can't say that word today, but I hope you know what I mean. I think being more specific in that first line would be helpful. And I like to start with are you a lot. Are you feeling stuck maintaining legacy systems? Are you feeling like you entered the engineering world to make new stuff and all you're doing is redoing stuff other people made 10 years ago? Those are some good ideas. And Ryan, I know we're not covering subject lines today, and it's a really big subject, and that's why I chose not to address it today. I felt like if I tried to do a good job talking about subject lines, we would run so far over time, or we just have to be way too vague. But I can give you some ideas that, like, our coworker Vivian mentioned in the last webinar we did about email, that she had really a lot of luck, and I never would have thought of this, using humor in her subject lines. Specifically, she used dad jokes. And I think that's hysterical. Like when she was recruiting for, let me see if I can remember her example. She was recruiting for construction workers. And she said, "Why do you always invite construction workers to the party?" was her subject line. And right inside the email, she answered with, "Because they always raise the roof." So silly, but does it stand out from the rest of emails everyone gets? I love that, Rob. Yeah. So I would love to do another webinar in the future on subject lines. I'm not going to go into it too much detail, but it is really smart to get to the point or be funny, be different, give a benefit right in the email subject. There is someone on LinkedIn named Jay Schwedelson, but he does a lot of testing about subject lines, and he's a really good person to follow. He's not a recruiter. He doesn't talk about recruiting outreach, but he's really, really smart at emails in general and making them read. And he does tons of testing. And he has a podcast called Do This, Not That, Marketing Tips with Jay Schwedelson. He's a really good person to follow for subject lines. Okay, so let me move on just a little bit now. And I will tell you that these tips I've given you are generic tips that work for lots and lots of people. They might not work for you. You have your own company, you have your own clients, you have your own candidates, and you have your own niches. People think differently. Engineers want more details than maybe receptionists. I don't know. The thing is, this is a place for you to start. You start with these principles, you start with these frameworks, and then you test them. So right within Loxo, if you're a Loxo customer, you can set these frameworks up as templates. So you can create an AIDA template, a BAB template, a PASS template, and you can start using them in your email outreach and send it for a while. Send it for 3-4 weeks, send it to a certain number of candidates, get a baseline of your open and response rates from that, and then start doing A/B testing. In A/B testing, most of you might know this, but I'm going to say it just in case. In A/B testing, you start changing one single aspect of your email and test whether it does better than the previous version. So can you use a different hook? Can you do a more vivid picture you're painting when you're doing BAB? Can you add more specificity? Can you be more specific? Try one thing at a time, let it run, pick the winner, check your metrics, pick your winner, and then do another test. And the best thing you can do with your outreach is to always be testing, to always see if I make this little change, will it have an impact for the better, for the worse, and what can I change next? So the great thing is, if you're using Loxo, you can turn this outreach into a system like that. And we are going to show you a little bit in this webinar how you can do this within your Loxo platform. Nat is going to take a minute and show you how to set up templates, how to see your open and your reply rates, and how to do A/B testing. And this is going to be it's just going to be a very quick view so you get an idea. As Nat mentioned earlier, Dan is running a separate online training session where he will go through live how to use outreach in Loxo, and you can ask all of your Q&A to him then as well. So if you have a question about your Loxo account, or if you have a very specific question about how to do outreach for your specific use case, Dan is a great person to ask about it. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Nat and let her show you the Loxo version.
Lovely. Thank you, Sandra. You got everyone so engaged in that chat. I was loving how everyone had their input and things that they had been trying. So
I love it.
It was awesome to see. Okay. Am I sharing the right screen? That is the question.
You're sharing Loxo, I can see it.
Okay, wonderful.
People
So
hate.
one of the last things that Sandra mentioned is the use of templates. Templates can be such a good base for that personalized message, as Sandra was mentioning, for you to be able to send that targeted email, outreach, whatever it is. When you are in a system like Loxo, it is quite easy to do it and to start creating them for yourself and for the rest of your team. So usually what you would have to do is just head into your settings and look for a section called templates. This one is available for everyone, so not just admins, but all users in general. And you can start playing around with these. So it's not just for email, you can do it for SMS or for people notes, if it's a prospect or if it's a candidate. You can do it also for campaigns. Let's take a look at what an example of an email template would look like. Over here, you would just go in, give it a title. What I usually tell customers is that if you're going to be sending different types of emails, you might want to create an easy way to identify it. So if it's a BD campaign or a BD email template that you're going to be using, make sure that you start labeling them in a way that's easy for you to identify them. If we're going to be doing that in particular, great. Let's take a look at an email that I copied from Sandra's presentation. This is just a quick example, but we've got over here the hi name. A lot of senior engineers today are stuck maintaining legacy systems. One team we're working with is building a new platform from scratch and hiring engineers. A lot of you had a couple of ideas on how to tweak this. Of course, this is a simple example. So it's more devoted towards a candidate. So maybe we can say candidates, maybe a SaaS business email. And I'll go ahead, give it a subject line. I'm not going to be very creative over here. So I'll just put this and I'll go ahead and I'll click save when I'm happy with this. So the structure is there, the base is there. Obviously, like you're going to put more effort into it. Now that we've got that email template, we'll just go into our people page, for example, and we can look for that list of candidates that we've created, that we have narrowed down that pool. We know that they've worked in startups for the maybe past couple of years. We know maybe that they are in the right location for this job, that they are exactly like the search that we have in mind. When we have that list over here selected, you can just quickly go select them. You can directly send the email to them by clicking on this, doing an insert, looking for that template and selecting that new template. And that will automatically create it for you. And this will individually send emails to each one of these prospects that you had on that list. So that's a very easy way for you to be able to do it if it's in a more general scope. If you did want to do it as an outreach campaign, because you know that you're going to send an email today, and if they don't get back to you in a couple of days, you want to make sure that you're following up. You can, of course, do it through an outreach campaign by creating something new. So you can do it from scratch. Obviously, give it a name so you know what you're actually targeting in this particular outreach, and then just start creating that. You can do this with the subject line, or you can just quickly go in and create that and select the template that you've already saved in your backend of your Loxo system. And you can go ahead and tweak it, add attachments, but most importantly, create delays so you know that in case you add anyone in there that you didn't want to originally target, you have time to get them out of this outreach campaign. And just like that, we've created that first step. We can create a follow-up, which can be the second email over here that can go out maybe 2 days after we sent the original one. You click add, and then that way you start building on it. If you want to understand a little bit of the performance of this outreach campaign or just that individual original message, you can take a look at all of the stats at the top by understanding how many prospects do I have in this campaign? What's our open rate? What's the click rate? What's the reply rate? And when you start adding people in, you'll understand all of the prospects are here and if they have had any success. So that's a very general overview of how it would be managed in Loxo if you wanted to use templates. But of course, you can send individual emails to people by just going into their profile and clicking on an email and just going ahead and writing it individually for each one of them. Okay, so that's one of the things that I wanted to mention. And before I forget, A/B testing is really important when it comes to outreach. So in the original campaign that you had, yes, we did create a first body of the email, but if you want to play around with different subject lines or to make the body of the email longer, shorter, more specific, more broad, you can definitely do so by clicking on the A/B testing section over here and creating iterations of that original message. And that's just going to make you stronger, make you understand what lands better with your candidates, and eventually gain more success through your campaigns. Hopefully this made sense. I know that I went through it quite quickly, but I do want to get through the questions that we have in Q&A. Sandra, is there anything else that you would want me to add?
I think that's good. If anyone else has any questions, please do ask in the Q&A. Natty, we had one question maybe you could answer. I believe, is it correct that when you do A/B testing, you can't do personalization like first name in Loxo?
Yes, you can. So when you're doing anything that is related to a tag over here, so let me just zoom in because this is quite small. So we do use tags and you can use them wherever you are. So if you go ahead and just use the actual tags that are Loxo friendly, they will gather the knowledge from the profile of that person that you're adding into the campaign.
Rob, I hope that answered you, and I think it was Claire who also, yes, Claire who asked that as well. Rob also asked, Loxo outreach campaigns are a great way to automate the client outreach process, and I'm a huge advocate for personalization. But how do you scale genuinely personalized outreach? One message might reference a prospect's published research, another their work in robotics or drone vision. How do you keep it authentic without killing efficiency? That's a really good question, and it's a really hard question because the reason why you see 10 million people saying, I loved your blog post when you haven't written any, is they're doing mass scale personalization that doesn't land right. So one suggestion I have for you, and I've mentioned this in the chat, but I want to say it out loud so everyone hears it, is segmenting your lists. So if you have, for example, people in a specific region or with a specific pain point, you can send those personalized emails to that list of people, and it will feel personal to all of them because you've picked out people that you want to receive that message. It's not like a magic pill. You have to do work to be more personalized, and it's why so many people don't do it and why you can stand out if you try to. I hope that helps. Lexi asks, what would you recommend using as a follow-up email or message? I get so many just circling back here and I hate it. I hate that just circling back too. People use it a lot because it's super easy. It's a little bit lazy. One thing that you can do is to try to come up with a different angle for them. So like if your first message was you're expanding in the EU, I have a report on that. Would you be interested in reading it? And they don't answer you, that didn't land. So what is something else that you could send them that would be interesting? Do you have like, maybe it's something like dealing with working across time zones. Maybe you have a white paper or a case study on a client who is able to address the problem well. I would try to follow up on your personalization with a different angle that would be just as interesting. It depends a lot on what your first email is, so I hope that helps a little bit. Let's see. Now, maybe this is one for you. Which is better to use with candidate outreach, campaigns, automations, or template and send?
I think it depends. So which is better to use with candidate outreach, campaigns, automations, or templates and send? So it will depend on the type of vacancy that you're working on. If you're looking for something that's quite broad, you know exactly what you're hiring for, even if you have like multiple positions for the same role, I would say go for an outreach campaign because maybe you can target more people that are more prone for that position in particular. If you are going for a niche role, I would use the template, but definitely tweak to land on their abilities, their knowledge, their experience, and go a little bit more in depth in that area. And just to make like a separate point, automations are great for your process as a recruiter in terms of like if you know that something has happened and you're moving a candidate to that stage, it will automatically trigger an email saying, thank you so much for having a pre-screening call with me. I will follow up with you in the next coming days. So just like something to keep them warm and to let them know that you're still there and present. That's when I would use email automations versus outreach for sure.
Excellent. Here's another one for you, Natty. Zach asks, Sending a bulk email as a template, will that insert an unsubscribe link?
It should, yes. So make sure that you go into your settings and let me just check. If not, you can ask support. But if you go into your settings and you are an admin, you should have this turned on in the compliance section. So make sure that you do have that turned on. Great question.
And here's another one. Is there an email limiter less than the current 5,000 in Loxo so we don't send out too many emails at once? In today's
Yes.
world, doing more than 300 a day gets you in trouble quickly. Thank
I
you for
love when
asking.
people ask that question. That is so good. If you are a Loxo user, our incredible software engineering and product team has created a section for customers called email. So I'm going to quickly share that with you because in a world where everyone is being flagged as spam and recruiters use this tool so much, it is very important to know how you and your entire team are performing. So you can actually set some rules and boundaries in terms of the email safety tolerance. So how is that space going to be between like the first email that sends out until like all the way to the next one? So doing things like this will help you avoid being flagged as spam, and you can also keep your entire team within the same range. And then also big tip when it comes to emailing is keep the default font and sizing and the colors quite limited, because if you start using a lot of images and colors, you might be flagged as spam. So things like that in this particular section of email do help quite a bit, and staying within your limits. So if you have a spike of today I sent 50 emails and tomorrow I sent 10,000, you're highly likely going to be flagged as spam. So make sure that you're staying relevant to how you actually work as a team.
And Rob was asking, what's a good target reply rate percentage? So this is something that your testing will help show for your specific use case. Usually 5 to 10% is good, but 15 to 20% is excellent. That's going to vary dramatically, though, depending on your niche and who you're sending to. So that's why I suggest doing a baseline and then trying to tinker with your emails to continuously be raising that response. Robert asks if there's a preferred time delay between stages to avoid being annoying. Nat, do you have an idea about that?
Yeah, so what is kind of preferred, so people also don't associate it with it being a bot in the background, is play around with the timing. You obviously will need to understand and stay within your parameters of like, okay, we usually tend to send 500 emails a day. Let's stay within that limit or within that range of maybe, I don't know, 400, 550, like maybe not go past it, but understand that if I'm going to be programming these emails to go out in a couple of days, then I know that I have those already kind of set up to go out in those days. So you can play around with that. So it could be the first one, we always say, leave 15 minutes for the first email to go out in case you add anyone that you shouldn't. The second one, a couple of days after, usually just kind of like as a nudge, you can add additional information about the role, what would actually interest them. And then depending on like how pressing filling this vacancy is, you can shorten the time for the next one and for the ones after that. But it really will depend.
This is a really great question from Deb. So she asked if we can speak about monitoring the open, clicked, and downloaded metrics within Loxo, because Loxo said we can't really rely on that data. When our system reports that the email was open, it tracks when a person opens your email based on a tracking pixel. This is a really good point. Like, there is no way in the entire email industry to be 100% sure that your metrics are correct. Because, for example, people can block tracking pixels so that they never show up. On the other hand, sometimes emails show up as open because they're using an email provider that has a bot scan the email to see if it's spam before it gets delivered. So email metrics are not correct, not 1,000% correct, whether they're in Loxo or anywhere else ever. But in a sense, that doesn't matter so much. Like what you're doing is tracking the way that your open rates change. So you can kind of guess that no matter what email you send, a rough percentage of people will have the same pixel blocking. They'll have the same bot reading. What you want to see is that this number is going up over time more than you want to see the concrete number itself. That number doesn't matter. The trend matters a lot. So I hope that's helpful. I know it's in marketing today, there's a lot going on that makes it harder and harder to get exact measurements of any data of any kind. And you'll know that if you've done anything about like who's landing on my page, who's clicking a link, who is opening an email. It has a lot to do with privacy. It has a lot to do with giving consumers more choices about how they're being tracked. So from a marketing perspective, it gets frustrating, but you can still know if you are doing the right thing with your emails, if you're being more successful by tracking the rate of change. Is there any way in Loxo, and this is, you'll have to answer this, Nat, is there any way to see if someone opened a mail again after being dormant for a while?
I think in Loxo or anywhere. I wish that were a thing. That sounds amazing, but I don't think that's a thing.
Yeah, that would be a pretty advanced email tracking tool if you could see not just initial open, but revisiting. I'm sure that'll happen eventually. I'm sure it's on someone's pipeline. Yeah, okay, but yeah, in an email tracking tool that's a little bit more designed for that specific purpose, it might exist. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
HubSpot does
awesome.
have something like that where I don't know how accurate it is because I've seen it tell me that I've opened an email 30 times or something when I'm pretty sure I haven't. But there are like things that do that somewhat. But even that, it's really hard to work with that data because are you really going to track the number of times someone has opened an email and then go back in a month and see if they opened it again? Like maybe, but I don't know. That's not something I do. Maybe you want it, but that's not something we offer in Loxo right now. I am not seeing any more questions in the Q&A. We
Yeah.
will have a couple more minutes. If any of you still have any, if I miss them in the chat, it's really hard to find questions among all the talk in the chat. So if you have a question we haven't answered, please go ahead and ask right now, either Q&A or chat. I'm looking at both. Otherwise, I really, really want to thank you all for coming today. It was so much fun to do this with you. And MPC mail template, Lex has dropped a link for our account-based prospecting playbook. That can be very helpful for you for MPC email templates. I love being here with all of you today. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you so much for coming. And please do attend Dan's session. He's really good at teaching a lot of detail about this stuff. And the Q&A is a great way for everyone to get really in-depth technical questions answered. I highly recommend it. He does a ton of training sessions in the community. I'm going to just drop the community link one more time. It's really nice. We have a certification course you can take there. We're giving away free credits right now to people who take the course, get the certificate, and share it. There's great discussions. We have live sessions there. So it's really wonderful. Please do come and join. And thank you again. We will see you next month. We already have another webinar planned. This is going to be with Alex Rose, who's one of our CS team now, but he was a recruiter until very recently. And he's going to talk about good ways to find and connect with passive candidates who aren't currently looking for roles, but who might be perfect for your clients. It's going to be on May 21st at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern. So you can use this QR code to register right now. And thank you again for coming. We'll see you then.
Thank you so much.